Our world is not what it appears. Our senses have a certain capacity, but this capacity is limited. The capacity of the senses is the capacity to recognize form and interact with form and work with form. The world speaks to the mind, and the mind speaks to the world. We are constantly being given sensory input from the world. It comes at us from all directions, at all times, and in all different ways. There are so many different kinds of media now. There are so many different kinds of print media. There are so many different kinds of media, such as television or the movies. There's visual media and audio media. But there's this constant barrage of sounds and sights that come at us from this world. And the mind reacts. And the mind goes on and talks. And all of this talking becomes very tiring for the mind. But when people talk and get to the point where many people listen to them, a strange thing begins to happen. They're given titles. They're given certain respect because of their ability to talk. And these titles sit within people and they mature. And when these titles mature, people become crazy. They become crazy from the titles because they begin to believe that there's some kind of merit within the titles. But this is the way the world works. The world gives titles, status, positions. They hand out medals. The world calls this success. It calls this honorariums. It calls this making way in the world, making progress in the world, becoming important in the world. And what we know from all of this through the mind is how the world acts. But there is a separate world. There is another world. And in this world, the princes and the princesses of God exist. Now, we can't know who these people are, who are the princes and the princesses of God. Only God knows who they are. Only God knows how many of them there are. Only God knows them. And he gives them a title. And the title is, they become part of his family. And as being part of his family, they become the heirs to his kingdom. And he gives them his kingdom. He understands the inside and the outside. So he sees your work in the world, but he also sees what's going on inside of you. Only he knows the number of the princesses and the princes that are his family. The world's titles don't take you to God's kingdom. They become a pathway for hell. They're an advertisement for hell. They're elemental in their nature, and they are not divine. It is very, very important to understand that divinity has no form, that divinity has no shadow. And there is a part of us that has no form and has no shadow. And we must come to know this part of us that has no form and no shadow. The ones who understand this shadowless world understand that God is a power, and understand that that power is the power of creation and the power that made all of us, all of mankind, and everything else that we see. And there are two separate parts to creation. God is an effulgence. Effulgence means a great light that gives off rays, it emanates. God is a great pure light, and he gives off rays. But his rays, the light that he gives off, are part of himself. The light that he gives off are what become the souls. And so Allah has given off of himself and created man as a portion of himself. So there are two parts to man. There is the created man and the non-created man. That portion of man that was not created, but is that which always was, has no beginning, has no end, and eternal. And that exists within each one of us. And that's what separates man from the rest of creation. Creation is a secret. Creation is a mystery. Creation is the energies that make up the elements. And the elements are what make up the rest of creation, in addition to man. The difference being that the rest of creation doesn't have a soul in the way that man has a soul. The rest of creation doesn't have a direct connection to divinity. The rest of creation doesn't have a section within themselves that is formless and that has no shadow. And we must understand this, and we must know that in this status of rays of light from Allah, in this divine status that enters into man, there is no female or male. There is only this pure light. And then this pure light becomes covered in form, the secret, the mystery of the elemental form. Understand that the soul is just like God. that should give you an idea as to the importance that God has placed in mankind. Now, you all know that Satan refused to bow before Adam. Satan's excuse for not bowing before Adam was that Adam was created out of clay, and he's created out of fire, and he is much more than clay. But Satan was mistaken, because Satan didn't understand and doesn't know what is within man. And what is within man is God. So God asked Satan to pray behind Adam because Adam had God in him. And Satan never understood that and denied that. And because of that, his arrogance took him in a different direction. Man is the son of God because the rays of God came into man and created the entity that we call man. Now, we have two allegiances. One allegiance is to our Lord, and one allegiance is to his qualities and his powers and the understanding of him. But we also have our mind, which has an allegiance to our body. And we have our mind, which has an allegiance to that which our senses perceive. And our mind also has an idea of how things are supposed to be in the world. What's an appropriate outcome for things? What's an inappropriate outcome for things? How are things supposed to happen? And our physical self, our emotional self, our mind self, our desire self has fluctuations in the way it feels depending on its interaction with what happens in the world. So our physical self is greatly affected by what happens in the world. So we're split. We're affected by what's in the world, yet we are cognizant that this is not reality. We're told over and over and over, the body is not real. The world is not real. Our sensory perceptions are not real. Yet, because we have them, we can't let go of them. Because we have them, we react to them. Because we have them, they cause us difficulty. They go through stress. They go through anxiety. They go through all of the emotions that are the emotions of form, not the emotions of divinity. God doesn't have stress. God doesn't have anxiety. God doesn't have fear. And man has all of these things. And fear causes reaction in man. Fear of what? Well, there's a million different fears out there. Fear of not having enough money. Fear of being disrespected. Fear of losing face. And fear of losing loved ones. fear of losing connection to loved ones, fear that things aren't going in the world the way they should be going. But what we have to understand about the world is that the elements are in a constant competition. One day they win, and one day they lose. And one day they win, and one day they lose. And because we are also elemental, we get tied into this winning and losing. And we react to this winning and losing of the elements. Certain wins make us happy. Certain losses make us sad. Certain losses make us happy. Certain wins make us sad. But as long as we stay within the elemental, what we end up doing is spending our life feeding the elemental. And that's a full-time job. When you're feeding the elemental, there's no time for anything else. You're feeding fire, you're feeding water, you're feeding air, you're feeding earth, you're feeding all of the needs that each of these elements has, and you're running like crazy to keep up with them. Desire is constantly putting you in a state where you need something else, where you need something more, where you need something other, in order to take away the anxiety, in order to take away the stress, in order to take away the difficulty. But understand, all of these elements are in competition. All of these elements are not unified in a way that causes harmony. They are in your body under an agreement to last for a certain period of time. Then they began to dissipate and fall apart on you. And everything falls apart on you. Only God is the plenitude. Only God has no beginning or end. Only God is without the emotions of the elements. Only God is without form and without substance and without shadow. He doesn't have a taint. All of us are tainted because of our bodies. And because of this taint, we carry with us the anxiety that that taint produces. We carry with us the difficulties that that taint produces. And until we come to a point where we realize that there's more to this than meets the senses, until we realize that, we are going to be constantly caught in the same trap. We're caught in the trap of the senses because we believe the senses, because we feel them. But you can't feel God. You can't touch God. You can't see God. But you can see everything else. So this becomes more real than reality. And we call it real. And we enter into an acceptance of form as our reality. And a big part of our training is to give up the understanding that form is reality. A big part of our training is accepting that form is not reality, that form is a temporary manifestation that is constantly changing shape, changing the way it is, that is constantly disruptive, that is constantly in eruption, and it has no stability. Yet we hold on to it as if we can ride it, and as if it will take us where we want to go. It won't. It is not there to do your bidding. It is there for its own sake. Form has its own arrogance. I mean, believe the fact that within you, you have the arrogance of earth, you have the arrogance of water, you have the arrogance of air, you have the arrogance of ether. You have all of these different arrogances going on within you at the same time. Yet, God has no arrogance. So, we have to learn, we have to understand the nature of God. And it is only through understanding the nature of God that we can begin to make the journey from our form to our reality. Make the journey from our anxiety to truth. Make the journey from our fear to peace. But as long as we consider things important and hold on to them as if they have consequences in our existence, we can't let go of them. So, if we hold on to our loved ones too closely, we'll be disappointed. If we hold on to our children too closely, we'll be disappointed. If we hold on to our cats too closely, we'll be disappointed. We will constantly be disappointed because nothing will meet your expectations. Not that they don't want to. They can't. Because what you're looking for is beyond what form can give you. You're looking for peace. You're looking for tranquility. You're looking for contentment. These are not the qualities of form. These are the qualities of formlessness. So, all of the things that are shadows, we have to understand their limitations. We have to understand that they're not real and they disappear. We have to understand that it's a matter of time that we will disappear. Now, God calls his children his sons because they contain a part of him. And as his sons, we have to come to know the Father. And in order to come to know the Father, we have to be able to leave the knowledge of form and enter into understanding not form. God is a great power. All of the aspects of creation are form. All that we can see and experience through our senses is form. And within the midst of this form, we have mind and desire and our reaction to mind and desire. We have to be able to somehow understand that it is within our ability and within our purpose and within our obligation to give up our attachment to these things. Within each of us is Maya. And what is Maya? Maya is illusion, and essentially it's the acceptance that form is real. So within each of us, we have this acceptance that what is not real is real, and we act with that. And because we do that, we also have arrogance and torpor and jealousy, the arts and Satan and sex and the seven hells. All of these things come out of our attachment to form. Form starts with the earth and goes through all of the other elements, and it is what we interface with. And because we're so surrounded by it, it's very difficult to relieve ourselves of it. But true prayer is a way to begin to detach from form. The prayer of La ilaha illallah, which says, I do not exist, only God exists, is the beginning of true prayer, which has no beginning and no end, because it's not based in form. It's based in attachment to God. And in God, there is no form. So if we truly are praying to God, what is the extent of the prayer? What does the prayer mean? La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Only God exists. I do not exist. And what that means is that you acknowledge your soul as existing. You acknowledge Allah as being what your soul is, but you also denounce and deny the form. So when you say I, you're not talking about the real you. You're talking about the created you, the you that is not real. So the prayer, in essence, is a plea to God to allow me to see who I really am. Allow me to know who I really am. Take me away from all of my attachments to this earth. Take me away from all of my attachments to all of the things in this earth. Take me away from all of the anxieties I have in this earth, all of the stress that I have in this earth, all of the expectations that I have in this earth, all of everything that becomes what I function within, all of everything that is the milieu for who I think I am. Pull these away from me. Take them away from me. Let go of these attachments. And if I can let go of the attachments, then I can get closer to Thee, O Lord, in my real state. Now, the intellect, which is what the mind functions with, functions in form. It doesn't function in formlessness. It has shadows, and everything it sees has shadows. But there is a state beyond the intellect. There is a state that understands things deeper than the intellect can possibly understand them. There is a state that understands formlessness. And that state is called wisdom. And wisdom contains that which is formless. So wisdom contains God's qualities. And let me give you an example of what happens when you go into that formless state. When you love as opposed to not love, things change. Physical appearance no longer becomes important. Wealth no longer becomes important. Status no longer becomes important. What's important is that one recognizes the divinity in another and is overwhelmed with love for the divinity within that being, the sweetness within that being, the kindness within that being, and those things become what is important in existence. So wherein, prior to love, you were separate from that being, after love, there's an integration within that being that melds you together in a profound way that only light can meld into light. But as long as we see each other as separate beings, then we also see each other as being capable of being harmed in this world, as being capable of disappearing in this world, as being capable of being put in jail in this world, as being capable of separating from us and causing us grief because we don't have that which we used to touch. We don't have that which we used to hold on to. We don't have that which we used to pet. We don't have it, and we're afraid of losing it. But the essence of what is within that form can't be lost. The essence of what is within that form was here before the beginning and will be here eternally. And we need to comprehend that. But we need to believe that. And it's only when that belief system becomes very, very strong and very, very positive and very, very real do we transcend the form. God has transcended all of this. He created it, but he's not part of it. He has transcended all of it. He's transcended torpor. He's transcended anger. He's transcended hate. He is in a state of unity with everything. God has no hatred. But because we haven't transcended form, we still have all of the qualities that are attached to form. And this is the road to hell. This is the satanic influence. And that's what Satan is doing. Satan is saying to you, forget about God. But he doesn't say it like that. He says formlessness is not real. What's real is what you see. And you are trapped in what you see. So make the best of it. Get the most that you can out of it. And then you become a slave to form. And you spend your life feeding form, feeding water, feeding fire. Fire can't exist without food. Nothing can exist without food in this world of form. So we become the ones who become the slaves that have to feed this form. God, on the other hand, is a grace and a unity and a transcendent beauty that is beyond our visualization. And that's an important point. Beyond our visualization. So don't expect to be able to understand God through your senses. Don't expect to be able to understand God through your vision, or through your touch, or through your smell, or through your taste. God is not available through your senses. God is not of the senses, and only the senses only recognize the senses. You have to find that part of you that can recognize God, and you have to surrender to God. But what is God? And you have to conceptualize a being without form, a being without shadow, a light form that is effulgent in its nature and bright beyond imagination, that has divine consciousness. You see, this light has consciousness. The mind has consciousness, but it's a limited consciousness. God's consciousness is divine consciousness, and it understands everything all at once, wherein our consciousness is limited. And for the most part, it's limited to trying to explain form and understand form and deal with form. It doesn't take on the mystery of creation and the mystery of existence without form. And we need to step into that state that is existence without form. Form will take us to the kingdom of hell. Everything that is form must return to form. This state that we're talking about, this formless state, this state without shadow, this illuminated state of the 3,000 gracious qualities of God and the 99 powers of God. There is no book for this form. There is no book for this formlessness. There is no book for understanding that. You have to find a man who has the map for this. It's only taught from one man to another man. It's only passed through one who has it, and he gives it to someone else. So we need to find a teacher who is attached to the formless as opposed to the form. The preachers who preach about the sanctity of religion and the growth of religion and the importance of religion and how this religion is better than that religion are teaching form. They're stuck in form. We need to go to the ones who are formless. We need to go to the teachers who don't preach hate, but who preach love, who preach kindness towards each other, who preach acceptance, and who preach acceptance beyond form, who don't hold form as separations between man, but who do away with the separations within man. We need wisdom in order to do this, and we need a depth of wisdom in order to do this. Think of wisdom as a magnet, and it is a magnet that attaches itself to divinity. It's a magnet that brings into our being the sounds and the essence of divinity. So wisdom is the ability to understand the qualities that are God, which is beyond form. And we need to begin to follow that path that takes us outside of form so that we can become the princes and the princesses of Allah, the ones who are in his family, the ones who recognize him and then he can recognize them, the ones who have escaped the creation that hides us from ourselves, and we have opened up into reality. We call so many things real, but none of them are. Almost everything we call real is a temporary manifestation of form that we encounter with our senses. We need to go beyond our senses. And there is within us that which can encounter that which is beyond our senses. But to do that, we have to enter into a formless state, a state where we are not attached to all of the things that our mind brings us. Our mind is going to continually bring us things. But we have to, as it brings it to us, say, no, I'm not interested. This is not for me. I've discovered that you lie to me all the time. I've discovered you just make up stuff and you expect me to follow that trail. Well, it ain't me no more. It ain't me no more. And we have to come to this conclusion somewhere during our lifetime, somewhere along our path. God's treasury is his qualities. God's treasury is his enormous light. God's treasury is his love and his unity. This is where the truth for us exists. And as long as we look in other places for the truth, we will be disappointed. As long as we look in other places for reality, we will be disappointed. As long as we look to find satisfaction from the world, we will be disappointed. What will not disappoint us is loving more. What will not disappoint us is having more compassion. What will not disappoint us is having more mercy. What will not disappoint us is detaching from our anxiety and our stress and all of the things that make life difficult for us. What will not disappoint us is giving up on the world. And yet we think it's so important. And if we give up on it, everything's going to go wrong. We have to do the best that we can within the world. Well, it's true. We do need to do the best that we can in the world. But we can't be dependent on results for who we are. Our results are measured by our ability to love. Our results are measured by our ability to be compassionate. Our results are measured by our ability to be kind. Our results are measured by our ability not to see differences among people and to treat all people equally and to treat all people as if they were ourselves. Remember, that part of God that is real is the same in all of us. And when we deny that, we deny divinity. And when we deny divinity, we deny God. And when we deny God, we're back in the world of form. We have to strive, each of us, to become the prince and the princesses of God. We have to become his children so that his kingdom is our kingdom. But instead, we're looking for our satisfaction from this temporary kingdom of creation. And this temporary kingdom of creation gives us our joy and our happiness. Well, the joy that this kingdom of creation can give us is fleeting. The happiness that this kingdom of creation can give us is fleeting. And so is the sadness that this kingdom of creation gives us. It just is constantly moving. And if we are attaching to parts of that movement, we're going to go on a roller coaster ride of difficulty and happiness and sorrow and joy and disgust. We have to detach. We have to realize that everything is false. All of our teaching is false. Our existence is false. The religion is false. Everything is false. And what we have to do is die before death. The death is coming. Die before it comes. And to die before it comes means to give up on everything that this life, this created life, is involved with. And if we can do that, then we'll become the children of God, and all of the vagaries of this existence will go away. We have to pray for that. That is what we need to instill into our existence. And if we can do that, then we will find true freedom and we will conquer this existence. May it be so for each and every one of us. May God allow us to have the wisdom to be able to see the truth and create within us that magnet that is drawn directly to Him. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.